One thing that I've done a little, maybe you've done this too, when I'm playing alone, sometimes I'll play a quarter note pulse, but I won't necessarily be playing in 4/4. I'm not even counting what I'm doing. So if we take that opening cadence, this is something that can be fun to do. This is a little more challenging to do in a group, but it's also possible in a band. I've done this in a couple of bands with friends. So the thing that makes it a little unsettling initially, if you're playing with other musicians, is that you realize that you're almost never going to be in exactly the same place at the same moment, because things are kind of very free and open. My friends, Jeff Johnson and John Bishop, I've been playing in a group with them for more than 20 years called Scenes. We have a number of records on Origin. And John and Jeff also played with Hal Galper for about a dozen years. And Jeff played with Hal in an earlier group in the 90s. And Hal decided he wanted to play this way all the time for a while. Initially, he was, a more conventional modern jazz piano player, but he decided to play everything kind of rubato, every single tune, and they were mostly standards. So they would just start. They never count anything off, and there would be some internal rhythms to the phrases, but they were not necessarily using a fixed meter. So you just have to kind of throw away this notion of pulse. It's the pulse kind of implied for a beat or two, and then it goes away again, and it just becomes texture and sound and harmony. But Hal could always communicate the harmonic intention clearly enough to Jeff, the bassist, that Jeff knew pretty much where Hal was more or less at any given moment. So they would just kind of flow from change to change. And John would play sometime, and then he would be thinking just texturally on the drums. And they did this for many years playing this way. And it's a pretty interesting approach. It's a bit challenging for the audience because one of the things that you normally expect to hear is pulse is gone. But I think the audience could sense the communication and hearing the group kind of moving through the changes in the structure of the tune together and, being empathetic and responding to it. I'll give you a little example of this. So this won't be exactly the way Hal did it. So I'm going to do it actually with a pulse. Hal did it even a little freer. Sometimes there would be no pulse even. Sometimes I'll do that too, actually. But rather than going, so those are the conventional changes, yes? So I might go. So sometimes I was playing a chord for 2 beats or 3 beats. Right. And again, a whole night of that, I think, is kind of exhausting for the audience, actually. But, so sometimes it's fun to play. You can even slip into a more conventional reading of the tune from what I just did. Or sometimes I'll just stop and play completely rubato. So, I think variety, as you know, is the key to making anything interesting. So if I'm doing a whole night of a pulse with no fixed meter, this would be kind of hard for the audience to kind of get a sense of the structures of the tunes, although they would hear the harmony referenced. But a little of that actually is fun. I like doing it. But also it's nice to be able to play the tune in a more conventional way too. So these are all just different approaches. And this is nothing that I pioneered. Probably Lenny Tristano's doing this, or even earlier, who knows. But Hal Galper really refined this in a pretty interesting way with his trio with my friends, Jeff Johnson and John Bishop. And they have, I think, 6, 7 records on the Origin label. You can hear them doing this. It's pretty interesting, especially if you're hearing them using this concept on a familiar tune where you recognize the harmonic structure.
It's too bad that there's a slight delay because I would love to try that with you right now.
We could try it together. Now, it is challenging to try it together, and we will try it together. Again, I think a whole night of it would be so tough for the musicians and the audience. But to do a little bit, I think, really is fun. It really teaches you to communicate the harmonic intention clearly and recognizing the fact that, again, we're kind of sort of chasing each other around the harmony. We're almost never arriving at the same place at the same moment because the fixed meter has gone away. But it's an interesting challenge. Or even playing rubato together can be fun.
And for anybody that wants to, for anybody that wants to, feels like they need to work more on their listening and being able to, kind of play off of the other musicians more, that could be a great exercise because, you're not confined to the pulse of the harmonic movement. You have to listen to what the person's playing and try to react to it.
Absolutely. I mean, we could even do the same thing with a melody. The melody could be. So it's kind of a pulse there, but it's here in 4/4, So, this is something that I think maybe could be something done in relatively small doses because it is a different kind of challenge, but it's another way to kind of fine tune your listening ability.